Welcome to Made in Moray, the podcast that focuses on the successes and struggles of local businesses. Let's get started.
Welcome to part 2 of the Claire Doughty interview. If you missed part 1, you might want to go back and check that. Otherwise, we continue. Please enjoy. What advice would you give to people interested in getting into your line of work? And this question is going out to, say, younger people who maybe don't know which way to go in the future, or maybe don't even know that this exists as an option.
Yeah, do you know what? That's a really good question. And it's not something, if I'm honest, that I think I can answer in terms of what qualifications they need, or, you know, I'm assuming that there's university courses now in, you know, marketing. Well, of course there will be. I didn't go down that route. You know, I started as a journalist. Never did I imagine I'd be running my own business in the north of Scotland and doing what I do now. You know, that was never on the radar. I think if I can draw on my own experience, and this I'm not trying to skirt around the question, because I genuinely don't know, because I don't know what's out there. But the thing that worked for me in terms of my journalism is actually getting the work experience. So I didn't really enjoy school. I didn't hate school. I'm not one of these people that goes, oh, I'd love to go back to school. I really don't. I didn't hate it. I wasn't bullied. Yeah. It was just something that actually I had to do, because you do, by law, have to go to school or be homeschooled.
Yeah, well, there has to be some form of education.
Yeah, okay.
That's the point.
Probably, you know, I'm talking back in the olden days when probably people didn't homeschool. Let me go back to my point. Sorry, I'm digressing. No, okay. I didn't enjoy school. I wasn't good at doing exams. You know, I could talk to you about what was needed to be written or whatever. I wasn't terribly good at interpreting questions and things like that. So I flunked my exams, my A-levels, and we did A-levels in England. And I really didn't do very well at all. However, I still got into university to do exactly the course I wanted to do. And the reason is that I had submitted a portfolio of all of the articles I had written for my local paper. And because I'd shown a passion for what I wanted to do, and because I had the experience already, I'd also gone and done a shorthand writing course at college as well. Wow. That brought the Asia demographic. You know, I was only 15, I think, when I did that. Because I had those ticks, I still got into the course I wanted to do. So I think my advice would be to anybody, you know, my world now, it's highly competitive. You know, there's marketing degrees, there's media this, there's online courses for this, that, and the other. I think getting experience sends you back. You know, come to companies like me. You know, I can't afford to pay anybody. However, I am more than happy to share my experiences to, you know, help somebody on that ladder and get the experience, so that when they do go to university, or they do apply for that job, or they do go to college, or they do get that apprenticeship, that they've got that under their belt. You know, I'm very passionate about young people experiencing work in whatever, you know, even if it's not in the field that they want to end up in. I think it's really important that young people experience work. You know, my boys at the moment, they're too young, obviously, to have formal work, but they have got jobs. You know, they've got tasks that they have to do. They've got responsibilities. And that's not me being mean. That's me trying to get them to understand that actually, to get through life, there are some things that you have to do, you don't want to do, but you have to do. You like doing. You know, I don't try and make them do anything they don't want to do, but ultimately, I'm trying to teach them responsibility. But actually, I think work experience for me is, if somebody came to me and they had, you know, the best grades in the world and no experience, and then I was given another bit of paper with mediocre grades but experience, I'm more likely to pick the person that's gone out and had the gumption and the confidence to actually go and experience what it is they're going to end up doing. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Especially from the perspective that hiring is guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really don't know what a person is going to be able to produce in the future.
No.
You're looking
at the past more when you look at a resume. So you hope that shows some kind of trajectory. But I think there's more than just passing exams. There's how motivated you are, how inspiring you are, just
Definitely.
how nice you are as a person.
Definitely.
Because somebody can have the best grades in the world, but you don't want to sit next to them.
Yeah.
For some reason.
No, I think that that's a really valid point. And I mean, that's also the reason I don't employ anybody. I'm scared to employ anybody, actually. You know, I could expand my business, actually, much more quickly if I took somebody on. You know, and I'm saying I can't afford to pay anybody. Actually, I could, because I could take on more business. But I don't want to. I'm scared.
Yeah.
You know, that is one of my fears, is employing somebody. Also, I don't know if I'd be terribly great to work with. I'm quite a control freak. You know, I've realised that this week, actually, with the wee man being in the house, how much I need silence to work. You know, I'm not good with background noise and things like that. But actually, I think in my job as well, you know, yes, you can teach how to write a Facebook post and a Twitter and a press release, a tweet, and a press. You can teach all that. But again, I think it comes down to personality and the ideas and the energy. And I do think if you're not a bit quirky and willing to push those boundaries, you know, sitting in a classroom, sitting in a university lecture hall, you can't really teach that. I don't think. That's just my opinion. Just like journalism, I had to go to university to do a degree in journalism because I don't know what it's like now, but newsrooms back 20 years ago when I left university, they asked for a degree in journalism or equivalent. I went to university for 3 years. I got into that newsroom in my first proper paid job. I'd been in newsrooms, but it was more features that I was doing at the time, and like theatre reviews and things like that. So I got into the proper, you know, newsroom, and I didn't have a Scooby. I had great shorthand, but actually, you know, going out and knocking on somebody's door and, you know, asking them to tell you their deepest, darkest secrets, there is a skill to that. There's a skill to knowing how to ask the questions and things like that. And interestingly enough, my journalism degree didn't cover that. We never sat in a room and did interview skills. We did sit in a room and learn about law, which is important. But I don't remember ever sitting and actually learning the skills that actually what made me a good journalist. You know, that's all come from me and then learning on the job. And it irritates me now that young people, I'm assuming it's the same in the industry, I don't know, but it irritates me now that young people are kind of being told they have to go to university to get that job, when actually you could learn it I could have cut out 3 years of uni. I'm not saying I want to. I had a great time at uni, but it didn't actually make me a good journalist. What made me a good journalist was working with other journalists and seeing how they do it and learning from them. And I'm a huge advocate for apprenticeships as well. You know, 100%. I think probably I'm one of the few parents that's thinking, I hope my boy's doing an apprenticeship. Clearly, if they want to go to university, we'll support them. But I don't think that apprenticeships have got the same stigma that they had when I was at school. You know, if you did an apprenticeship when I was at school, you were like the dunce. You know, you were the stupid person. Clearly, and rightly so, that has changed. And I am so glad that it is changing, because I would love, you know, if I could go into work when I was 16, 17 years old, learn on the job and get paid and end up with a qualification at the end of it. Wow. You know, and also I think from the workforce's point of view, or the employer's point of view, you can shape and mold that person to what you need them to be. I don't mean that in a horrible way, but, you know, you're teaching them as well. This is the ethos of our company. This is what we expect from our employees and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm a huge fan of the apprenticeship.
Oh, I totally agree. And if I think back to my time at school, there were a lot of people around about me who failed miserably at school, and they're doing far better than me at the moment. So I don't think there's much correlation between success within exams and success within life. There can be a correlation. There's no rules.
No.
It can be whatever you want it to be. You just have to put in the time and effort and energy in the right direction.
Absolutely. And, you know, the other thing with young people today is I mean, again, mine are still little, but I feel there's so much pressure on young people. What do you want to be? What do you want to do? Well, does it matter that much? Actually, pick something that makes you happy and then figure it out. You know, my dad, he jokes. How old is Dad? I'm 39, so Dad is 68. He still jokes that he doesn't know what he wants to do. You know, and it is a joke, but actually, you know, if you pick something and you don't like it, change it.
Yep.
Resign, you know, find something else. Life's too short to be stuck in something that you don't want to do. And I may be making that sound simpler than it is. I know, you know, we've all got bills to pay and things like that. But I think young people just pick something that makes you happy, you know. If that's, I remember, you know, people saying, oh, you can't, you know, oh, what's he going to do with that qualification? You know, some history degree or, you know, but actually just do what makes you happy and the rest will follow. I'm a true believer in that. The rest will follow.
Yeah, and nobody wants to spend their time around people who are unhappy.
No.
So if you do what fulfills you and makes you feel satisfied, you will be surrounded by a good group of people.
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely.
as well. And that makes a big difference. What could the community do more to support the kind of work that you're involved in?
Ooh.
Is that a curveball?
Yeah.
Just throw you a strange question.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. What could the community do more to...
So what I'm doing here is I'm flipping the last point. Yeah. Which is, you know, my last question was what advice would you give to people? So how to channel people into that kind of career or that kind of area. Here we're sort of looking at the reverse. Yeah, we're looking at not looking at the fact that you have a business that provides a service to the community, but thinking about how the community can also service the businesses. What is it that the business needs from the community or the people within the community, maybe to understand, or maybe something that would be helpful?
Are you talking about me as Claire Doughty Publicity, or generally the community engaging with business? Community
engaging with business.
Ultimately, that would be what I would say. Engage with the local businesses, use them or lose them. You know, again, I'm obviously going to think about my customers, but, you know, go visit the tower, go visit the toll booth, pop into Mackenzie and Cruikshank for a cup of coffee or just for a wander around. You don't even have to buy anything. You know, engage with these businesses and organizations because they're what also are bringing people, visitors into the area. And if the local people don't sustain that through the, you know, the shoulder seasons, as I think they're referred to, these businesses won't necessarily, you know, or organizations, you know, won't necessarily be able to keep going. So engage, use them.
The businesses are also the people taking the risk as well. They're the people putting themselves out there and giving great opportunities. The reason why you can buy wonderful Christmas decorations is because somebody has spent 30 to 40 years grinding away building out a business. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, if I may, you know, Forest Live Party at Grants is a really good example of somebody taking a risk. You know, that is being funded by one individual businessman who wants to put on an event in Grant Park because he knows it's a fantastic venue. But actually, the buck lays with him. If it doesn't work, which it will, but if it doesn't, the buck lies with him. And I really admire that person for putting himself out there and taking a risk. Because, you know, events are a risk in themselves. Anyway, you know, the weather is the biggest risk when you're running an event.
Oh my God, yes.
Although we have a beautiful big like circus teepee, so even if it rains, you know, but that is the biggest risk. And I admire anybody, because running your own business, whatever it be, whether it's a massive organization or, you know, a small organization like mine, the buck falls with me. The buck stops at the director or the managing director, you know, whatever. And it is a risk putting yourself out there. I fell into doing what I do. You know, I didn't wake up one day and said, I'm going to launch a publicity business. It kind of happened, as we said, kind of organically. But I was scared taking that risk. You know, at the time I was actually fostering. And I was paid well for looking after these lovely young children. But there was a risk there in choosing to stop doing that and then setting up, my business, the publicity business, because I didn't know if it was going to work. I still,
Yep.
I know I'm comfortable with where the business is, but it only takes one thing to stop working, or me to fall ill, or something go wrong that can be the difference between it continuing to be successful and not. And I admire anybody who takes the risk and goes into business for themselves, because I also know the stresses that it brings with it. So back to the question, community, use the businesses, support them, get out there and go to the events that are being put on, pop into the shops, do what you can. Actually, do you know what? I love it. It's circulating on Facebook at the moment, and it always does at this time of year. And it's that there's a Facebook feed which comes in, and it basically says you don't need to spend money to support, the small local business. Like, comment on their post, share a post. That can actually really help a small local business. You don't even have to spend any money.
Absolutely. I've been going through that with a couple of businesses recently, where I've been talking about the 6 degrees of separation theory. Yeah, which is you're much closer to everybody than you really think you are. And if you can get 6 people to share something on a social media thread, and get them to convince each 6 people that they know, and maybe 6 is too high a number, so just pick 3. The reach of the information is immense. It really is.
Absolutely. I was just going to give an example, but it's a bad example of something that happened. It wasn't a good story, and it was one of these firefighting days that I had, where I had to support a business when something went slightly awry. And I was there the next day speaking to a marketing person, one of my network, who lives down in England. She says, "Claire, how was your weekend?" And I said, "Actually, do you know what? I've been left slightly traumatized by my weekend, because I have literally been firefighting social media nonsense." And then I started telling her about the one of the incidents, and she went, "Oh, I heard about that."
Oh my goodness.
And that, that was staggering. She's down in she is from here, but she now lives in England. And basically, the thing that unraveled on social media unraveled because somebody who she knew happened to know somebody who knew somebody who had been at the thing that didn't go quite so well, and she'd heard about it down in the south of England. And that to me was just a really good example of actually bigging myself up here, but why it was so important that I dealt with that incident so quickly as well, because we got it off and it was fine and it stopped. And I'm talking about it now, which I probably shouldn't be. But
It's fine.
But that's not a bad example. It's a good example, but it's not a positive example. But it does show you actually how quickly things can move on. And if we can use that in a positive way, as we've just said, think how much better things would be locally.
Oh, absolutely. And through social media, we do have this almost instant reach, where we forget that you can post something right here, right now, and it can be seen by somebody on the other side of the planet almost instantly. And that blows my mind constantly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it blows my mind when I'm trying to target people in Australia, and then I have to remember that there is quite a significant time difference, and my scheduling, I have to get have to schedule things very differently to make sure that, because there's no point me scheduling something at 5 o'clock in the evening for people in Australia. I have to make sure I do the time difference thing, and that hurts my head because I'm not very good with numbers.
And the other side of that is that if we are that close to that many people, if we have a problem and we can't find a solution ourselves, then there's nothing wrong with putting out the question, because who knows who's got the answer? There's somebody somewhere out there who's got at least a little bit of an idea about how we can solve a certain problem or find a certain solution.
Yeah, definitely.
So if we share more, we can actually get more feedback that we can work with, especially if we've got problems. I don't think people should be afraid to share problems, because the only way to find a solution is to talk about the problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, do it. Get involved.
Get it out there.
Yeah, get it out there. Get involved. Changing the pace a little bit, because we've been through a lot of questions today. Something fun. What book would you recommend to people to read? It can be something that's interested you personally, or it can be something for business, maybe something you've done with your kids.
Do you know what? I don't read any business books because they scare me. I probably should read business books.
Should read mine. I
will read yours. I've read this really great business book by this gentleman who lives in Lossiemouth. No,
you don't need to do that.
No, I do. I find things like that, I find things like that quite overwhelming because I'm almost afraid to read something and go, oh, do you know what, Claire, you've been doing this wrong for the last 5-6 years. Yeah. So no, business books are a no for me. I don't read self-help books. One of the most brilliant books that I read recently, and I can't even remember the title. I can remember the title. I'm not going to say it in the right way. Why French Children Don't Throw Food, something like that. Okay. And it's basically the differences between French children and British children. And the reason I read this book, it was when Chris Evans was doing Radio 2 and he was talking about it. And I wanted to read it. I love the French. I love their culture. That's where we holiday. And I've got a beautiful friend, Caroline, who's French, and she has 2 beautiful children who are much younger than my children. And they have absolutely impeccable table manners. And my children who have, we sit down and we have family meals, and we always have, yes, we have pizza on a Friday night in front of the TV and stuff like that. But generally we sit at the table with a home cooked meal. And yet my children's table manners drive me insane. And I don't know what I'm doing wrong as a parent. And ultimately it sounds like I'm not doing anything wrong. It's just that they're British. And the French children, it's almost like it's part of their very being that these children can sit at 2 and 4 years old beautifully at the table, and they don't throw food, and they don't pick their nose, and they use their cutlery properly, and they pass the salt. They don't hurtle it down the table like you might in a Western saloon, which is what my children love doing. And so get that book because it's fun and it's a nice, easy read. Yeah.
And there's also a difference between doing what you want to do and sitting all nice and politely, conforming to society, not being able to do the very things that you want to do.
Yes. Well, yes, absolutely. What I'm trying to teach Adam and Tom at the moment is that it's fine that it's context. Yep. And I'm trying to teach them that it's fine sometimes to, fart at the table or burp and have a bit of a giggle about it. And, suck our spaghetti through our mouths like, we're in Lady and the Tramp and things like that. That's okay when we're in the house. It's not okay when we're in a restaurant. And I'm trying to teach them context and that what we do as a family is great. And I don't want to take the fun out of, my boys' awful toilet humour because they crack me up every day. But at the same time, that's not okay when we're at, such and such's house or in a restaurant or...
Yep. Certain words are okay at home that maybe shouldn't be used other places.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
I've got can I say this story? I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. It uses a sweary word though.
Well, if it ends up inappropriate,
we'll take it out.
I'll just take it out.
So
it's okay.
when my eldest boy was probably about 2, no, maybe a bit younger, when he said the word shark. Yeah, it actually sounded like the word...
Something else. You can spell it.
Fuck.
Okay.
So I thought this was hilarious. So I spent time on my phone getting him to say things...
Wait, how did shark...
I don't know. That's just how he said it. Because we were reading a book. I think it was Smiley Shark. That's what we were reading. And I was because he couldn't read obviously at the time because he was too little. So I'm obviously where's the shark? Point to the shark. And he went and pointed to it and said Fuck. And I just thought this was hilarious. So I then got my phone out and I got him to say things like sharking hell and shark me. which I just, I was literally, side splitting, laughing away. He didn't really know what was funny because he just thought Mummy was making him say really strange things with the word shark. However, this backfired because I didn't share this with anybody else.
You have to have kids to understand this. If you don't have kids, you're like, these people are crazy. But
yeah, it does sound a bit mental. So I didn't really share this with anybody else. I think I told my husband when he got in from work and we're all giggling and listening to the recording. Anyway, fast forward to Friday, it would have been, and Adam went to his granny's and she took him to one of these soft play things. And as Adam was walking around at the top of his voice, he said something along the lines of, "Sharking hell, Granny!" And she came home, understandably, quite flustered and took me aside and she's like, "We've got to speak about Adam's language." And very slowly the penny started to drop and my horrified look. And I was like, no. He wasn't saying that. And I had to go and get the book and explain and so probably not my finest parenting moment in making him say those things, but one of the funniest, and it'll be rolled out at his 18th birthday. I've still got the recordings actually as well.
File them away.
Yeah, absolutely. He didn't know what he was saying. He didn't understand.
And kids do that, right? They explore the world. They're not quite sure of certain things, and they make the faux pas here and there. And that's. Oh my goodness! Oh, thank you for sharing that. You've brightened my day.
I just, do you know what though? We're talking about sharing things, and if you don't know something, or if you know you're anxious about something or whatever, do you know what? I say these things because these are all. I wouldn't say they're parenting fails, but they are parenting realities, and they are things that have happened. I am not, I am in my children's eyes the world's best mum because they tell me that. But I'm really not. I'm just battling on like every other mother or father out there. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. I'm just making it up. I'm winging it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I like to share these things because hopefully, there may be somebody out there thinking, "Oh, I'm not doing a great job today." But you know what? I feel like that too. I've had fails. I've had successes.
Yeah.
That's what, do you know what? I try and tell my little boy, my youngest one, he needs help with his confidence, really does need some help with that, and it's getting better. And he really doesn't like to fail at something. He, this is a big thing for him,
A lot of kids have that. A lot of kids. Yeah.
And it's, again, I don't know the exact phrase, but I try and explain to him that in order to appreciate the highs and the happy moments and the successes, you have to have experienced the failures because the successes then feel so much more and, you're more grateful for them. But I don't know if he's just a little bit young yet to kind of understand that concept. But it's true. If we were always happy and always successful and didn't ever face any challenges, we would just take it all for granted and ultimately probably would stop being as successful. And
the balance is really difficult. I mean, with my own kids, there's the want to say dial back my own skills and abilities to balance things up and give them a chance to win at things, which is okay sometimes, but then there's other times where you want to show them that what their actual skill level is. And my son had the same issues with he would sometimes go crazy if I beat him at something. I'm like, well, no, you got to learn that you got to learn from what's happening.
We have that a lot. And there's one of our lovely grannies that we have. She's so lovely, but she lets both of the children win at everything the whole time. But obviously that backfires because
well, they're going to learn that Granny's not very good.
Well, they just think that they're great, and they are great. But I find it. I'm really bad. I'm maybe a bad mum because, like, say we're playing cards, I want to win.
Well, no, that's
I don't care that I'm playing with an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old. If I can win, I'm gonna win. I'm only joking.
Well,
but it's like
you say. Who are they going to learn from?
But it's that balance. It is that balance, though. And of course, I've let my children win at. I've allowed them to win to experience that. But equally, I don't always let them win because they need to know.
That's okay. I let my partner win at something yesterday. Not just my kids. I let my partner win.
Does she know you let her win?
I don't know.
What was it?
It's a driving game. It's a driving game on the Xbox, and I let her car overtake my car on the last corner, so that.
And she doesn't know that you let her.
I don't actually know.
But she's happy.
I haven't gone into that conversation because then it tells that I let it happen.
Yeah.
So I just kind of.
But she didn't, because
she was very happy though.
Oh, that's fine.
She was really ecstatic about.
I feel like we're like whispering now, so she can't hear us.
That's
Let's edit this bit out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll just tell her not to listen to this part.
Claire was really boring. Don't listen.
Yeah.
Talking nonsense.
So she doesn't listen to what I do anyway. She's got her own things going on, so that's cool. But it's little things we do, right? We do these little things just to, I don't know, make life more fun, or to help other people out, or to make people feel good, and I think it's perfectly okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
There we go. I want to be really respectful of your time, but I'm still going to throw in
that's okay.
One or two very little questions. Time travel is possible. Where would you go and why?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go to the future because I think that'd be too scary.
Well, it would mess everything up, wouldn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I don't mess anything up, but I don't want to. I don't like to really think too far ahead because I'm not sure if the world's going in a direction that I necessarily think it should be.
If you go into the future and then you know what's going to happen, can you come back?
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean, it mess things up.
I'd probably. This is going to sound really morbid. I'd probably go back to like wartime.
Right.
Like Second World War time. Partly because it fascinates me, and I don't mean in an awful way. I think it's really important. Like my children are learning about that at school right now, and I'm so glad that they are, because I think I don't want them to be too cushioned from past atrocities and things like that. They need to understand that the reason that we have the life today is because of the sacrifices that were made. I think I just think it was a really interesting time, and I'm talking generally about the 30s, 40s. I'm not talking just specifically that wartime. I'd probably just go back just to see what it was like and understand the rationing and I don't really want to be thrown into a battlefield, if I'm honest, but just the home front and all that kind of thing, and the real sort of movement of women having to take on the roles because the men were off fighting, and because I think that was sort of it was a huge shift for where we are today as well. I'm not just talking the battlefield stuff, the actual home front and what happened and how that has affected everything that we do today. So as I say, I'm not saying that in any morbid way. I think probably, I also think, again, taking the war part out, it probably maybe wasn't, but it sounds quite a glamorous time. Women dressed up and were women, and men were men and had handkerchiefs. I'm probably a bit of an old romantic, but actually, I'm all for equality. Actually, am I for equality? Yes, I am, but I don't think we've got it. I really don't think that we've got equality, and I'm talking men and women equality. I really don't think we do. We're getting there, but this I can only talk about my own little family. It was still me that got the phone call from the school to go and pick Tom up when he was poorly. It was still me that took the time off work, inverted commas. That's partly because I'm able to and my husband's not. He's a joiner. He can't very well cart Tom around with him. I'm totally digressing from the question, I know that, but no, I'd probably go back to that time just to experience it firsthand and really understand what it was actually like.
Well, that's a great answer to the question. And just on the point of equality, I think it's interesting, the question, do we really want things to be all equal? And the example I would give is something simple, say like a football match, right? Do you want everybody to follow the same set of rules? You want everything to be fair, but you don't want everybody on the park to have exactly the same skills or exactly the same skill level. Because at that point, the game loses its interest for people.
Yeah.
So up to a certain point, we do want everyone to have a fair chance at something. But beyond that, we still want people to be individuals. We still want people to have personalities. We still want people to pursue what it is that they love. Like, I don't want my kids to pursue what I love. I want them to pursue what they love.
Sure.
And so it is a tricky question for a lot of people.
It is a tricky question. And I mean, I'm going, when I say equality, clearly I'm glad that women have the vote. Obviously, that is a good thing. But I'd love a gentleman to hold a door open for me and give up his seat for me. And I know I would. And I know that sounds really cheesy. I remember being pregnant and being on a bus and really needing to sit down and nobody stood up.
That's terrible.
And that to me is just bad society. It's not just equality. Yeah. But, I'm teaching my boys actually now, if we're on public transport or whatever, if an older person comes along, you give up your seat. That's the right thing to do. Male or female.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, maybe a bit of an old romantic, but I want the door held open for me and,
I understand.
and ladies first and all that. I'm sorry, I do. I do. I'm probably going to get shot down in flames.
No, not at all.
Equality in our house is me not getting to pick any type of film and just watching what the rest of the boys in... I was talking to your daughter.
Yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. And, we were talking about Frozen, weren't we? With your daughter, or I was. And I was explaining to her that I don't really get to watch these films because my boys don't want to. And that's not through any,
No, but I feel terrible about that. When I heard you talking about that, I was like,
Did you feel really sad?
I actually felt gratitude for having a son when you were talking about that, because I suddenly thought, oh my God, if I only had daughters, that there maybe wouldn't be Spider-Man.
Yeah, so I've got obviously these two wonderful boys, but there is no Belle from Beauty and the Beast or Jasmine from Aladdin or any of these wonderful things because they don't want to watch them.
Oh my God.
I have to watch Marvel films, which I hate. I cannot stand them.
I understand exactly what you're talking about there. It's very much machoism, explosions, and people strutting around.
Yeah, it just gets a bit tiresome. And sometimes I want to watch a princess flouncing around in a nice yellow dress. Oh, dear.
You'll have to have Princess Day.
Yeah, I do have. I'm very lucky. I've got a niece and my best friend as well. She's got two girls. So, I can always steal them and take them to the cinema or have my girly days with them. So that's fine. And again, just any gender people out there that are concerned, I am aware that, boys can watch these films, but mine just don't want to.
Oh, yeah. It's, it's interesting how things turn out when you just leave things be. They kind of turn out the way that they would have always turned out.
Yeah. Do you know what? A really interesting thing. So my friend Claire, she has two girls and then she went on to have her third child who is a boy called Ewan. And I seem to remember her saying, because they had so many toys, that she wasn't going to buy him any new toys because there was a house full of toys, albeit pink, pink stuff. You can imagine you've got a wee girl, whether we try not to, girl stuff tends to be sparkly and pink or purple or whatever.
Naturally, it's who we are.
So she just didn't buy him new stuff, particularly when he was teeny tiny. And she said what was really interesting was that he picked all of the toys that had wheels or whistles or noise. So they were still girly, but he didn't pick the dolls. He didn't pick the pushchair or the kitchen, all these, stereotypical things that are associated with being female. Yeah. He picked the things that are associated with being male, so the noisy things, the things that had buttons on it and twiddly bits and wheels and things like that. Yeah. And she just found, she thought this was fascinating that he had been given literally a house full of girls' toys, but he still, for whatever reason, picked the stuff that you would stereotypically attribute to a male.
Yeah.
It was just, it was just an observation. That's all.
Well, biology is interesting. It's really interesting.
Yes.
It's a great observation to make, because when you're watching kids, you learn a lot about the world and the way the world works. And I think my greatest learning experience in my life has been spending time with my kids and having them teach me about things that I thought I knew, but really I didn't.
Yeah.
And so true about life. What do you think should be written on your gravestone?
Nothing too serious.
Right.
Although, actually, there's something to be said. We like walking around graveyards. Tom, not so much. Mm-hmm. But I actually love reading the information on headstones. Yep. And I love reading, pick my grandmother's name, Catherine Watson. Yep. Devoted wife, mother of 4, whatever the details are. Yeah. I actually like that because I don't think, who was it? Spike Milligan. They never told me I was ill or something like that. I'm sure. I think that's what Spike Milligan's got on his gravestone. Uh-huh. And that's funny too, because that encompasses actually who he was. Yeah. He's a comic and all that kind of thing. But I think there's something to be said. Do I want Claire Doughty? She was really good at marketing on my headstone. No, not really. No. I think I actually just want the fundamentals that we all, well, not that we all have, but the traditional stuff. Because I don't know, as I say, we like looking around the gravestones and learning about who these people were and finding our family and things like that. And what I noticed, actually, I was up at the graveyard few months ago at Cluny Hill, and they talking about me putting marketing, they did actually used to put people's jobs on. So it would have all this stuff, Claire Doughty, and then at the bottom it would it would have said I don't know, marketing or publicity person, but no, they did used to put that on. But no, I don't. I mean, it sounds a bit dull. I don't need anything crazy on my headstone. Just who I was, my boys, my husband, because actually that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what matters.
What about you? What will you have on your gravestone?
Wow.
I won't be able to afford a gravestone.
I would probably have something offensive, because I'd probably get a reaction. Because the worst thing for me would be people just like walking past and like they'd be like, whatever. I'd have something that
drew their eye.
Yeah. It would probably be like FUCK this or something, right? That's.
Adam could have that on his gravestone from his shark days.
I'd probably have something offensive because I'd be gone and like that would be it, and I couldn't really offend anybody anymore, and I wouldn't be worried about it because I'd be dead, and that would be that, and it would just so that's me. So that's what I'd just try to get a reaction out of people, I think, in some way. And maybe not have any dates, just to be weird,
so that people didn't know.
Yeah, they would just be like, I don't know, just something alternative like that. And saying that, actually, because I asked the question to people, I actually did think about how I would answer it myself before. And apart from being offensive and trying to get a reaction, one of my thoughts was I'll probably just have my ashes scattered somewhere, because I'd hate to take up space. Yeah. So, and I think that's something that a lot of people choose nowadays as well. But on the other side, do I want to be remembered? Do I want to be remembered and forgotten? I don't know.
But the thing is, I think unless you do something completely outstanding, and I'm not saying that you won't,
because we all do a little bit of something outstanding on a daily basis.
But actually, within 2-3 generations, you are going to be forgotten.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you are the Einstein of the world. Or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, naturally.
You are. That's the natural progression of things. I know a lot about my grandparents because I was lucky enough to meet them. I know a bit more about my great grandparents because I was lucky enough to meet those ones. I know a teeny tiny bit about their parents because I did do a little bit of research into them. That's as far back as I can go. You know, I know snippets of information. And does it matter? I like to know a bit because I think it's important to know where you've come from as a family and as your heritage. But does it matter to those people? Probably not, because they're dead. It depends on your beliefs. You know, I don't know what happens to us when we die.
Well,
I had a lovely. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Do you know what? We were talking about this recently, and my friend was having to explain to her very young child that somebody had died, and he said, "But where has she gone?" And they did the practical stuff. Well, there'll be a funeral, and there'll be a this and a that. Yes, but where is she? And this kid had very cleverly distinguished between body and spirit. Yeah, they're not a religious family or anything like that. And she said to this little boy, a little girl, can't remember, little boy, little girl, "Do you remember before you were born?" And he said, "No." And she said, "But yet you're still here. And it still did happen before you were born. You know, you were in my womb, but you don't remember it." And he went, "Right, okay." And she went, "That's how I like to think about what happens when we die, that, you know, it's still something positive. It's still something, we're still somewhere, but we don't know and we don't remember it." Does that make sense? Well, I'm maybe not retelling it very well, but I liked that sort of circular and that synergy. And because I don't remember being born, but I was clearly. And I quite liked how she sort of gently explained that to him and just said, you know, it's okay that, you know, they're safe. They're wherever they're meant to be, I think in essence is what she was kind of saying.
Yeah, it's the unknown.
Yeah.
Right, we're not quite sure where we were, if we were anywhere before. And we're not quite sure where we're going to be if there is anywhere beyond.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's a nice way to explain it.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, we're quite good in our family at talking about such things because I think it's really important. You know, our biggest grief so far as our little family was losing our wonderful dog, Molly. And if any, you know, I know you can't have animals and things like that, but actually, do you know what? It taught them, that was their first experience of grief. And I'm glad they've had that experience. You know, we were all very distraught. Well, my husband wasn't. He doesn't really like the dog. But, but you know, I was extremely distraught. And the boys were distraught to a degree. And we still talk about Molly now. And we still talk about how we buried her. And we had a funeral for the dog. You know, and all those things. And actually, I'm grateful for that experience to set them up for when we lose a grandparent or a great grandparent, you know, or whoever, anybody. And so that's, I don't even know why I started talking about that, but I'm grateful for that experience. And I'm glad that they've experienced that so far, so they understand how they might feel. Oh, this is getting a bit morbid, isn't it? Sorry. I don't think it needs to be morbid though. That's my point.
I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of introducing that topic.
No, it's fine though. But actually, do you know what? That's the whole point though, is that I don't want death for my children to be morbid.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be frightened of either dying or people around them dying. I think that it's really important that we talk about the subject and we talk about what we want and don't want when we pass away, that we talk about what should be passed on to people, if anything. You know, I do think that's really important. And we're quite open as a family, you know, so we don't sit around every day talking about it. But at opportune moments, if it comes up, you know, it is discussed, and, you know, it does come up, and
it does happen, and it's something that does put the important elements into perspective.
Absolutely.
For us. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think any moment where you experience some kind of trauma, any kind of trauma, whether it's, you know, I can't even think, I don't want to start listing traumas. Any type, God, it's like an episode of Casualty or something.
Getting up in the morning.
No, but I think it's really important that any type of trauma, you use it as a measure for what is important.
Yeah.
And to take stock, stop and take stock. And actually, you know, I've got things swimming around in my head at the minute. You know, it's my boy's birthday tomorrow and all of these things, and I've not made him a cake. I won't make him a cake because I'm terrible at baking. I'll buy him a cake, and does that make me a terrible mother? Do you know what? It doesn't actually really matter given other things that are going on personally and in the world right now. It's fine. It's fine. Stop and take stock and cherish the really important things in your life.
Oh, absolutely. We're here today. Tomorrow's not guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Not
you just don't know. You don't know what's around the corner.
Absolutely. So, just and that's why, that's why people should, I think, make an effort to be positive in that area and positive online, because we just don't see everything that's going on. We don't know everything that's going on. So making that extra effort to reach out to somebody in a positive way, you never know where it's going to end, and it's always worth the effort.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. And talking about reaching out, if people are interested in getting in touch with your organization to maybe get some publicity for their business, or maybe to learn a bit more about what you do or what they need, where do they find you?
So I've got a Facebook page, which is at Cd-Publicity, and the best way is to pick up the phone and give me a buzz. All my details are on the Facebook page, so that's the way people can get in touch with me.
Super. Thank you very much for coming in here today. Thank you very much for sharing all your experiences and all your stories. It's been absolutely fantastic. I want to wish you great success in the future and all the best for everything.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Made in Moray is a product of the Academy of Language Therapy and Life Coaching. Book a free online personal or professional development consultation today. What are you waiting for?